Testing. Oh, there we go. Hey, good afternoon, Nashville. It's good to be here. Really appreciate the invite from the World Demolition Summit. The topic I want to talk about is really from an owner's perspective. How do we go about vetting contractors? What are we looking for? What are the critical things that makes it through the process? So, I don't have any cool videos like he had, but bear with me on that. So, agenda, just really going to talk about what are the owner's expectations? What are we looking for? What does it require to be successful for most big, large, regulated utility companies? Pre-qualifying process. I get this question a lot. You know, what are the steps that we go through with potential companies for decommissioning and demolition projects? Last but not least is really what are some of the information needs we would be asking from you? And last but Q&A. I want to start with this, and this is really, to me, I could probably do the whole presentation off this one slide. So what are the cornerstone expectations of vendors? From my perspective, it is that safety and environmental focus are the foundational cornerstones of the house. And what I mean is, if you look at any good house, when you're putting in the foundation and the cornerstones, you've got to have something that you hold everybody accountable to. And that requires safety and environmental. Nobody, from an owner's perspective, wants to see their name in the local newspaper or on the Washington Post or the New York Times. Most of our power plants are near water, and you know it's critical that we're not getting oil and other stuff into the rivers. If we do, it's bad. It has impact on shareholder price, stock price. It has impact on reputation. It has impact on a lot of different things. If you look at the walls of the house, especially from reputable and integrity, these are things that we should expect from everybody. I want to be working with companies that I hold from an integrity perspective, someone I can trust, but also who I hold reputable. That's someone that if I end up in a court case or at a state corporation hearing, that you're sitting right beside of me. And someone I'm happy to have sitting beside of me, not someone I'm ashamed to have sitting beside of me. That's critical. For anybody that owns power stations or in business that you're working for, and especially if they're working for, they have to report out to like a state corporation commission or any type of body like that, there's times that you may be called to do that, perform that task. So that is very important. Basically on top of the roof, one of the things that I think is this industry is lax sometimes is effective communications and sharing lessons learned. I've asked the question at the last couple events I've been at, share some of your lessons learned. What I find out is a lot of people, they get to clam up. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Ultimately, lessons learned helps us all. And I know for myself, I'm on my 8th demolition. It's those lessons learned that helps make it safe. My goal is that all the contractors go home, their employees go home in a safe manner. The other thing too is communications. One of the things that we see a lot is that communications, everything is great till we get to the contract, and once we award, everybody goes off and does their own thing, and the communication seems to die down, and that's not good. We have to have effective communications. To me, that's the lifeline of any contract. It's the lifeline of any relationship. On top of the house, near the chimney, is basically prudent risk management. And what I mean by that is this. You're not taking chances with your people out in the field. First of all, you plan the work, you work the plan. And when you communicate, you do what you say you're going to do, and you do it right. That is something I know with, especially on these large demos, whether or not it's an implosion, maybe we're taking down a hung boiler, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, these are foundational. I would even hold my children to that same level of what I want out of them. Last but not least is the front door. If you notice over the front door, you got the word accountability. Everybody should be accountable. People shouldn't run from it. And when you enter into a business relationship, especially with stakeholders who are providing critical services, such as demolition and decommissioning, it's critical from an accountability perspective that we hold each other accountable. To me, that is what's the relationship about. And like all good houses, you need a little flag out in the front, and it says "Go Vols." That's from my alma mater. Okay. Okay, next. Here's our process, just as high level. This is our process on how we pre-qualify and vet companies. One, we go through the process of locating the D&D companies like yourself. We go through a pre-qualifying process of the companies, which I'm going to let's walk through this. First thing I'm going to do is ask you about your team. Even when we're getting to know each other, I want to know your experiences. I want to understand a little more about your teams. So part two is we go into a non-disclosure agreement. Then I invite you to the bid process, release the RFP, go through the evaluation. I'm going to ask you about your project team again. Notice it's on here twice. That's important because, again, I want to know, are you able to perform what you say you can perform? Then the contracting process, which that's the part where everybody either loves or hates. Last but not least is the bid award. And the bid award is where it all comes together. And hopefully, when the bid award is right and the contract's good, we're all happy with each other. So, how to find a power plant company. When I first started in this business in 2018, when I came into my role within Dominion, I got tasked with a bunch of power plants that were getting ready to shut down. I didn't know anything about power plant decommissioning. I was doing capital projects. I said, I got to go figure this out. So I ended up starting coming to the conferences. I found out there was a couple conferences. I started attending. Got to know some people. There's a lot of people in this room that I know from the demolition contractors. I started doing some internet research, who were some local companies, who were some of the regional, who were some of the nationals. But ultimately, I had to sit down and I reached out to some peer companies. In the utility industry, I have an open door. For example, if a utility wants to reach out to me or an industrial to sort of get feedback, I'm going to give them feedback. And if I reach out, they'll give me feedback. So that's how we came about that. Ultimately, though, projects require specific information from each of the vendors with vast experience. Ultimately, you're not going to be asked to come to the bid process if you don't have the experience behind you with the right team. And again, ultimately, from a mission is to identify and shortlist the right companies for our projects. These are critical. This here is just really the pre-qualifications. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but there's some that are just these categories. For example, safety, as I said, that's cornerstone. We're going to ask a lot of questions about safety. We're going to look at OSHA 300 logs. I'm going to go back into, here in the U.S., I'm going to go back into the databases. I'm going to go look for that detail on your company. The environmental side, we're looking for notice of violations, if there's been anything there that you've had in the past. We all understand financials. Again, looking for your financials, your bonding capacity, credit, all the stuff that goes into that. Workers' comp, what your claims look like. Have you had any large claims against it? And these are the other categories that would go into that. So I'm going to go forward here and break into these categories. Safety. First thing is no work-related fatalities in the last 4 years. That's something that Dominion does. We go through that process with our supply chain. We're going to go through and verify that you've not had any fatalities. OSHA recordables would have to be less than a 4 to even be considered with us. DART is less than 3. And then on the OSHA 300 logs, we are definitely going to go through those. One of the questions we tend to ask that a lot of people ask why is, what is your involvement in related trade or safety associations? Do you get involved? Do you sit on the sideline and just sort of kind of sit back? Or are you actively involved in some of these trade associations? There are some great safety events that go on in this industry. And I hope everybody's taking the opportunity to do those things. From a safety, the EMR, that's always a big one. I know we are going to reach out to your workers' comp carrier. We are going to be looking for claims. We are going to understand where you're at on that. The other thing is how many hours of power plant demolition do you have versus general demolition? In the power plant industry, to me, that's pretty important. I know today there's a lot of companies in here. A lot of you are doing a lot of cool stuff, especially with sporting venues, buildings, different things like that. In my world, I'm really looking for people that's done a lot in the power plant industry. And everybody can say, well, hey, the risks are different, but the risks are a little different with every project. Environmental, one of the things that tends to be very important is that history of previous events. Do you have any notice of violations? Have you had any events where you've had, fuel going into the river, oil into the river, whatever? What are some of your prevention and risk reduction plans? What do they look like? We will ask them maybe to see them, talk through them. How do you train your employees when it comes to environmental? What's your training program look like? Are you doing it in-house? Are you doing it, with a third party? Does everybody on the job get trained? Does everybody understand the importance of environmental? One of the biggest things, too, is sustainability. I know the conference here, the theme of the conference has been sustainability yesterday and today, going along with Jose's message. We will ask, what's your Tier 1 emissions look like? What's your Tier 2? A lot of companies don't even have the information. A lot of companies have never even thought about it in the U.S. But it's important. At the end, you have to go through that analysis and get that information. Financial and insurance, these are very well self-explanatory. You're looking at your credit. We typically use a letter of credit on all projects and or retainage. That's just typical. Basically, the P&P bonding, we very seldom do that and only do it in a unique circumstances. Our preference would be an LOC or retainage. The company has to be licensed in the state where the work's getting ready to take place too, from the financial aspect. From a technical, these are how we really look at it. When you're looking at your bid categories, these are things that we would take in consideration from the supply chain perspective. What is your experience, what's our experience with you if you've ever worked for us? How's your safety team set up? Do you have it in-house? Do you do your own safety training? Do you have your own safety leads? Or do you basically go outside to a third party on those? What does a typical safety team look like on a power plant D&D project? It's different. Every site, every company's got a little different spin on that. I know, and normally, if you have 10 employees on my site, you would have to have a dedicated safety person as part on the team. Capabilities, things I look for is, I want you to self-perform the work. I generally don't like a lot of sub being done on the job site. So, for example, I would want to know if you're going to sub, what are you getting ready to sub? Why are you subbing it? I want to know that. We also understand we deal with a lot of different companies, and some of those subs may be people who have already dealt with us that we know, so it's a good thing. Typical questions, have your company recently completed at least 3 power plant projects? If not, chances are you're probably not going to be asked to participate in the RFP. We are going to ask for your basic resumes of the key people: superintendent, construction manager, project manager, safety lead, environmental. It's amazing how many people in this industry are afraid to give you their resume. As an owner, that's a red flag. We are looking for those resumes, and we are going to go back and do checks, especially on some of the references and stuff. Projects, we basically typically provide our potential bidders a worksheet asking for those companies to provide, give us 5 to 8 projects that you've worked on, give us a scope, high-level scope, walk me through those, walk me through some of the risk of the project. If a company can only show that you've only done a couple, then we may have some challenges there. We also do a utility industry peer check. So here in the U.S., in the Southeast especially, there's several large utilities. We all have various projects going on in the demolition world, and we sit and talk periodically about what projects are going on, what's going on with different companies, who's doing what. So we understand if you give us a reference, we generally have the ability to go back and check it from a peer check. This is important. Choosing the right company and the team is probably one of the 2 most important decisions that you will make from the owner's perspective, which ultimately impacts the success of your project. The second decision is how that company manages after the bid, and that's where everybody wants to. And that's really where you get down to the safety, the technical, as well as the communication. Okay, this question comes up a lot. Who evaluates the bids? Typically, in Dominion, it's the supply chain folks. It's going to be the project manager. If it's a power station, it may be the manager of the power station. If it's structural, a lot of structural work, it may be someone out of an engineering group. There's a number of different subject matter experts that have that seat at the table to evaluate the bids. Understanding the scopes of work, understanding what's been proposed in terms of processes, how's the work going to be accomplished, the ways and means. What's our experience? Have they demonstrated experience previously? Yes or no? What's their approach? I look for value engineering. So, for example, if I have the ability to demo a stack, we're going to demo the stack. It has to come down by a mechanical method, then I want to understand what you're thinking, how you think about it. Thoroughness. One of the things we tend to see a lot from bids are submitted is people send incomplete information. It's amazing how many people, companies will come down, they get to this point, they went through this whole process, and when it comes time to submit the bid, it's just parts and pieces. They fail to put it all together adequately. It's like homework. If you don't do your homework, the teacher's going to generally not count it. Work schedule, what's your proposed work schedule? Costs are important. That's the financial assessment of the total cost. Your subcontracting plan from supplier diversity, we typically are looking at veteran-owned, minority-owned, and women-owned companies that help support that. It does have an impact on the bidding process. It has a small impact. It's not going to make the change. It's not going to add 90 points to the overall your score, but it could add 2 to 3, no doubt. One thing regarding is conforming versus non-conforming. Hopefully that's not a new term for everybody. We do see a lot of non-conforming bids though, and a lot of people come up after the bid and say, "Hey, what happened? Why was I not considered? Why did I not make it to the final?" Well, when you start going through the paperwork that was requested, they failed to only give 25% of it, and then they expect, well, give us extra time. Well, if everybody else does extra time, I generally don't give extra time. We try to sit down and look at what is the right time frame and ask the question. Again, there's a lot of work going on in this industry, and I understand that people are stressed from the resources of trying to get information back out, but we are too from the supply chain having to go through all that paperwork. We typically are using a third-party expert to help us from the team perspective to sort of kind of go through all this different stuff. So the bid category weights, I basically walked you through sort of our bid process. It's really safety, environmental, it's cost, supplier, it's the thoroughness of the proposal, and it's supplier diversity. Those are really the 5 bid categories. Each of those categories has a different specific weight. It could be 5%, it could be 10%, it could be 20%. We do sit down and ask for bid clarification. So for example, if we come down the path to the final 2 or 3, we'll sit down and ask clarification questions. Ultimately, we want to make sure everybody understands what is the path forward, what is being meant when we talk about mechanical demolition or implosion. We want to understand what is the owner, as owners, what are we going to be seeing in the field when we're watching the process. You go through that final bid ranking, that's where everybody, you want to basically be there and be in the number. This is where we basically have down selected the vendor that represents the most value for us. I did not say it was the lowest cost bidder. If you notice that, I did not say that. We do find in a lot of cases that the low cost does not win the bid. It's an economic evaluation that is evaluated across all categories. So it does matter what your EMR score is. It does matter what your OSHA looks like. It does matter what your environmental, what you've done in the past. They all matter. Ultimately, the bid award, it goes great. We get through the contract terms and conditions. And last but not least is the negotiations. I put Fiona and Shrek on here and Donkey there on the buggy, just to sort of give you an illustration from our world. Shrek is the demolition contractor. He's the ogre. Fiona is the utility customer. That's generally my customer, which is the power plant. I'm not saying that my power plant managers are prima donnas, but they do act like Fiona a little bit. Well, my team is really Donkey. My goal here is to sort of kind of keep everybody happy, moving forward, and communicating with each other. So when we are staffing our projects, I have a project manager, a construction manager, typically a mechanical, electrical field leads, safety, and ECCs on that site. I've already staffed up to support whoever wins the bid. So again, we're Donkey here in this situation, and ultimately, we want everybody to stay married and happy from the contract perspective. So in summary, owners, I think there's several of us in this room, we have to have proven processes and metrics for our vendor pre-qualification. It's critical that we, especially when we're testifying before the State Corporation Commission, the governor, other interveners into some of the rate cases that these things will end up in, it's critical that we have standard processes that we can pull out and hand it off to the state or the federal. The second one is really, this gets back to the vendors, the folks that are in the room here. You and the site resource experiences are critical, mission critical, to the success of our projects. I've not been through a project yet that I had vendors that did not have good people. Ultimately, every now and then we'll find a bad egg, we get rid of the bad egg, and we move forward. But ultimately, we go through that process, we're looking through the resumes, and ultimately, we're all striving for the same thing, which is success. Success in my world is safety first and environmental, get the project done and get it done right. The third thing is team. Timing and team and discipline. Everybody in here, many of you are run a business. I know there's a lot of operators sitting in the room. I think there's a lot of OEMs sitting in this room. Basically, when you look at timing and team and process discipline, in my world, that acts as basically as mitigators to support risk. I'm a risk-averse person. Dominion is a very risk-averse company. We do not want to be in the New York Times or the Washington Post. So anything we can do to identify risk, quantify that risk, and reduce the risk, we're all about it. And we want to, it's an interactive session here where the vendor and our team, owners and engineer, are all working together. We work together to make that happen. It's critical. Again, this gets back to the communication, the last one. Active communication between the stakeholders acts as a contractual lifeline. It's just like a relationship. If we don't talk and we don't keep the lines of communication clean, then it's hard to succeed. In the contract world, one of the things that we're all looking for is performance. Do what you say you're going to do it well, and do it right. From the owner's perspective, we don't ever want to have to open that contract up. That is the last thing I need to do is go jerk out a 125-page contract and go start looking for breach of contract, indemnification articles, and then have to sit down and get my lawyers involved to go through that. We don't want to do that. We need to be able to talk to each other in a rational manner, be able to sit down, have a discussion, understand what's going on. And on those jobs, especially a critical job, we're tearing down boilers, we're tearing down stacks, we're tearing down SCRs, we're tearing down all these things within the power plant, in the power block, especially when the power block still has active units running. We've got a project right now, it's got 2 combined cycle gas plants running. It's got a unit common that's 77 years old. It's amazing what you find that's buried in these old sites. It's amazing when you pull the cover off of a cable tray, what pops out of it. There's cables and stuff that was never on the drawings, and you just scratch your head and say, where did it come from? So there's a lot of things go in there, but again, we have to be talking with each other, and that is the key. This concludes my prepared remarks, and I'm open for any discussions if anybody's got any.
Thank you for those insights, Rick, into how you go through that vetting process. I'm sure there will be a few questions in the audience. I've got one over here. Please tell us your name and company.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Hey, Rick, Chris Dowdell with Coke. I guess my question for you is, those different values and qualities that you're looking for in contractors, how do you balance, those all cost money, right, for the contractor. Those are overhead. But on our side, we see that as a benefit, right? We're paying for what we get. How do you balance your bidders list to not sort of gold plate, the bidders list, but also balance it with the risk that's associated with the job? That's something we struggle with, is to come up with that right bidders list where, their skill set and their talents meet the level of the risk for the project. So I don't know if maybe that's all just in the pre-qual, or if there's some other, something else you guys do to help balance that.
Yeah, good question, Chris. From my world, the way I would look at that is this. When we're going through pre-qualification, I generally know the scope of what we're doing. If it's a full power plant decommissioning, if we're taking down a stack by itself, we're taking down an admin building, the levels of risk are different in every one of those scenarios, right? I think we all agree with that. What I would be looking for is, for example, on hung boilers. I think that in this industry, there's a lot of experience here with hung boilers, and there's a lot of risk with hung boilers, for example. I want to look at different companies and their success on that. Now, in what you're talking about from that, having the skills as well as having all the other stuff embedded in that, Chris, when you have a smaller project, for example, let's say it's taking down an admin building. I may be looking at more of a regional company versus that of a national company. So again, every scope is unique. Every scope has its own unique risk profile. And again, the bidders have, these are minimums. These are our minimums within in the house to be able to be included. I can't, in good faith, on behalf of about 2.8 million customers in Virginia that we have, sign a contract with somebody that I can't feel comfortable with. It's like marriage. I'm coming up on my 30 years next week of being married. And you have to have a comfort level there with that person. You have to have done your research. You have to know them. In our process, I call it the dating. That was sort of kind of the theme here. But once you know that, then generally you're making an informed decision to be able to move forward.
Do we have any other questions? Rick, I have one question for you. What are some of those common mistakes that you see through that process when you're looking at those bids?
Yeah, Connie, from a non-conforming perspective, really it's just sloppiness. We see a lot of vendors that may have 2 or 3 bids going on at the same time. They're trying to rush. They're trying to get the bid out the door. They sending it in hopefully in good faith that they've actually filled it out. But there's a lot of things that sometimes will be missing, and they're hoping that the utility will just extend the bid cycle. A lot of times we are not able to do that. Again, if we're stuck on a hard schedule, then we're stuck on the hard schedule. If the schedule's soft and there's things that maybe we missed on the scope of work, then we're open to that. But it's really a lot of just thoroughness and being sloppy.
Thank you. Question over here. He's coming.
Hi there. Just a quick one. You talked about the team that you're buying, basically from the contractor, Richard Van from RVA Group, by the way. At what point do you lock in with your contractor the team that you're actually going to get on site? Not the package that they're selling you when they come and tell you how great they are, like all contractors do, which is fine, but you've got to know who you're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. At what point in your process are you saying to them, barring major issues, these are the guys that I'm going to get to run my job?
Sure. Great question. The way I would look at that is this. In first part of this, if you know, back into the presentation, I noted in our project team, I'm looking for who's doing what, especially just getting to know each other, understanding experience. Once I include you on a bid and you make it through the bid cycle and you get it down to evaluation, the team is back on that list again. I'm going to go through, I want to understand if there's been any changes between the first time we talked about team to the second time we talked about team. Team is important. I mean, if you look at any type of, let's just take the Predators last night. I don't know if anybody went to the hockey game. It was a great game. They lost in overtime with 3 seconds left. The team dropped the ball. They basically let Vancouver come back. So what happens in my world, with my project management, construction management, all the other people, we have to get to know each other. We were going to, if you're down to final 2, I'll probably invite your team out to come to the site, walk the site down. And then ultimately, when I go down to make that final bid, down select to the final bidder, then I will have a comfort level who is the team. The biggest thing we do not want is a switch and bait. If we have that, then that leads us down basically a contractual divorce at some point.